After my family sank deep into debt, my father pushed me into the arms of Olden Granger, a man with a dark gaze and paralyzed legs, as payment for everything we owed. He warned me to behave myself, but I was always stubborn, difficult, reckless. On our wedding night, I decided I would be the one in charge, and that's exactly what I did. I ignored the shame in Olden's eyes, the way they filled with a dull red, as if he was deeply embarrassed. I didn't care. I wanted to enjoy every second, because even though he carried that melancholic, almost mournful air, it was impossible not to notice how handsome he was. But when his legs miraculously started working again, I panicked. I ran away in the middle of the night with my childhood friend. It was useless. Before we even made it out of town, Olden showed up with a gun pointed at him. But it wasn't my friend he was interested in. His gaze was fixed on my belly, recently shaken by pleasure. His voice froze the air around me when he said I was trying to run away with his child in my womb. I remembered his time at university, how he seemed absent, cold, with an almost ghostly presence, and yet irresistible. I spent hours thinking of ways to get his attention. At one point, I decided it would be more practical to tie him up. My family didn't have enough prestige for that. But I was determined. I wrote a diary with 365 strategies to seduce him. And apparently, the universe decided to reward my efforts. Now that he was immobilized from the waist down, there was a different charm about him. Before the ceremony, my father looked me in the eyes and asked me not to cause any trouble. All he wanted to know was if Olden was still capable. I researched every detail with the precision of someone studying for college entrance exams, and there was only one way to be sure: testing. The conclusion was clear. He was more than capable. The problem was that he hid it behind an expression of pure hatred. He should have been enjoying it, but he clenched his teeth so hard that it looked like he was going to break them. He swore he would get revenge on me, that he would destroy me. But those threats only excited me even more. I silenced him with a long kiss. His eyes wavered when I tried to get closer again. We were already married. There was no point in pretending to be modest. I asked him if he preferred another position. As I helped him up, that look on his face, he knew I knew every inch of his body. That abdomen was almost like an amusement park to me. Even though he was blushing, he tried to resist. He looked at me with disgust, as if I were the villain of the story. But I had nothing to lose. Bankruptcy had already robbed me of everything. What would death be to someone who had nothing left? His threats didn't affect me. I laughed as I used his own tie to blindfold him. He was still talking too much. Maybe he wasn't that tired after all. That was only the third round. And I was far from finished. They say that when you deprive yourself of one sense, the others become more acute. And of course, it also makes you more dependent on those around you. Olden, even tied up, was still trying to hold me by the waist. In the dim light of the room, the soft light cast our shadows on the wall. Every muffled sound that escaped him sounded like music to my ears. I leaned in and whispered in his ear. If he was enjoying it, his face lit up. He tried to turn away, biting his lip. I loved his resistance, and so I moved even closer. I called him my husband, just to tease him. I slept peacefully, satisfied. I woke up late, and there he was, staring at me from his wheelchair, with that dark look. He was wearing a turtleneck sweater. Even in the heat, I could still see a red mark on his neck. When he noticed me watching, he pulled his collar up tighter. It was as if I had marked him once again. Before he could say anything, I jumped excitedly into his lap. I said, "Good morning, husband." According to psychology, it takes 21 days to form a habit. So if I called him that every day, he would eventually accept it. But he turned his face away, muttering that I shouldn't use that term. However, his ears were red, a silent betrayal of his pride. That made me smile. He didn't have to be him. I had several husbands online. But surprisingly, he held my hand. He asked if I was with someone else. I took advantage of the gesture and slid my hand down to his muscles. I told him he was all I wanted. He pushed my hand away angrily and mocked me, saying he was going to divorce me. I responded by asking why he was shaking so much, if he really wanted to get rid of me. Sitting in that chair, he looked no different from other men, except that in that situation, I was the one in control. His hair was still wet, and his hands gripped the arms of the chair tightly, as if trying to restrain his own body. His eyes, once so dull, were now clouded with tears. 2 years had passed. Olden was no longer the same. He had become very good at it. When I asked him something, he didn't answer. But he didn't push me away either. Just when I was starting to believe that all men were the same, he pushed me. He said it was just a physical reaction, that I would never mean anything to him. After that, he walked to the bathroom with his head held high. Pretending not to care, I couldn't help it and started laughing. He still hadn't learned that his tricks didn't work on me. I pulled the wheelchair back. I stroked his black hair and told him he wasn't being convincing. Olden turned red as a tomato. His slightly slanted eyes had that wild gleam of a cornered wolf. If his legs had been good, I might have been in trouble. He gritted his teeth and asked me to stop. Standing on the bed, I looked at him with a provocative smile. That was just the beginning, when my skin brushed his calf. The sound of the bell on my ankle filled the air. As I touched his muscles, I felt his body tremble. Despite his angry tone, there was something else there. Maybe I was fooling myself. After all, we were two enemies disguised as a couple. And I wasn't going to let up. I only stopped when he finally said it was my dog. I told him I needed the money for handbags and designer jewelry, but the truth is that I was discreetly transferring everything to offshore accounts. He was the one who started this divorce business, so I couldn't risk coming out of this empty-handed, right? With a twinge of guilt, very small, almost decorative. I asked the waiter to prepare a fruit tray for Olden, an attempt at remorse as genuine as a weasel bowing to a chicken. When I arrived with the tray, he threw the plate of fries on the table and froze on the bed. He told me to leave, as if he still believed he had any authority. He said he wasn't falling for my provocations anymore. I feigned surprise, put my hands on my hips, and responded with a smile. "So this is how you show you missed me?" he scoffed, saying he wasn't that desperate for my body. I kept my pose, but my eyes wandered to the deep neckline of his pajamas, revealing a provocative collarbone and, below, well-defined muscles glistening in the light. The line of his thighs seemed to beckon me forward. I swallowed hard. What a feast I had been enjoying all these years. A wicked idea popped into my head. Thank goodness Olden's legs didn't work, or how would I have gotten something so valuable? He smiled coldly. I completely forgot my friend's warning and threw myself on top of him. He was perfect. He always awakened my desire to dominate. I kicked his shoulder and moved down until I reached the exact spot. Seconds later, I pulled his dark hair and brought his face closer to mine. I told him he was right. We were so close. I saw Olden's pupils cloud over, filled with something between threat, desire, and a dangerous touch of insanity. I smiled and slapped his face. I asked him where my thanks was. Suddenly, he grabbed my ankle tightly. His hand was warm, damp with sweat. His voice was hoarse, promising me once again that one day he would kill me. I replied that I would eagerly await him. My dear husband. As I tried to blindfold him with my tie, I felt something strange. His muscles, previously immobile, were now reacting. His veins bulged. His leg twitched. I froze. Olden's legs had recovered. The sensible thing to do would have Been to back off, help him get dressed, apologize, and feign remorse. But sensibility has never been my strong suit. With such an irresistible man in front of me, how could I resist? I abandoned any pretense of common sense and gave myself over to delirium once again. Later, I broke into the hospital and stole his medical records. It was confirmed. He was completely recovered. But did that mean I could no longer do whatever I wanted with him? I walked dejectedly to a corner and suddenly heard a familiar voice. A woman was saying that my horoscope was beneficial for our son's future. I knew it. I always knew there was something behind that forced marriage. Of course, the richer the family, the more they believe in horoscopes and predictions. Olden's mother seemed worried. She said that if he was really cured, he could ask for a divorce. His father commented that since his last conversation with a woman named Lark, he had completely shut himself off. They said Lark was too kind, boring, and that they preferred someone like me, lively, impulsive, but perhaps too intense for someone like Olden. Those words spun around in my head like sharp knives. I bit my finger nervously, remembering the mysterious packages that arrived at our house and the workers who renovated everything except the rooms in the mansion. The words he whispered the night before came back with a vengeance. "I'll find a cage to lock you in," Jeffrey scoffed, saying we were two crazy people obsessed with each other. He reminded me of my obsessive notes, the photos I took in secret, the crazy plans I wrote in my diary. And in the end, he was the one with a basement with a golden cage made just for me. According to Jeffrey, the tables had turned. I was the dominatrix when Olden was immobilized. But now that he was back in top form, it was best to run. And I've always loved a dramatic escape. That same night, I chartered a private jet. The next day, I dragged Jeffrey, still half groggy, to the airport. He grumbled the whole way. He said I didn't need to involve him in my crazy schemes. I replied that he was my insurance. If my legs trembled when I saw Olden again, I would need someone to stand between us. Once settled in the spacious seats of the plane, I breathed a sigh of relief. I caressed my slightly protruding belly. Olden couldn't get to me now. Jeffrey was munching on potato chips nonstop. When I mentioned the baby, he fell silent. I turned, to him suspicious, and that's when I saw him. Olden, leaning against a seat, with the coldest, most lethal look he had ever given me. In one hand, he held a gun pressed against Jeffrey's back, but his eyes were fixed on my belly. His voice cut through the air like ice. "You thought you could run away with my son and give him another father." And of course, I ended up in the basement again. The place was lit by dim lamps, objects hung on the walls, black leather sofas covered with chains, the same ones that now bound my wrists. I smiled. Olden and I were made of the same stuff. He had been careful. He put me in the huge golden cage he had built. He stood outside, watching me arrogantly. He said I was still trying to escape. I stretched my hands as far as the chains would allow. I pouted and asked if this was really necessary. He laughed, approached me, and held my chin firmly. He said that I was finally in his hands. I licked the base of his thumb, and he let go. Surprised, his red ears gave him away. He started yelling, asking if I had gone mad. I just smiled. Now that the tables had turned, he didn't know how to handle it. If this was too much for him, what had he planned to do to me when I was the dominant one? He tied his hands behind his back and said that now he would make me pay for everything he had suffered. I responded with a little smile. "Have you ever thought that maybe this is exactly what I want?" He pulled me by the collar angrily. He called me crazy. I made a pitiful face with teary eyes and said it was all for love, that I had never treated another man like this. I reminded him that even during the 2 years he was paralyzed, I never strayed. His expression wavered. Still, he tried to keep up the act. He asked if I would dare to cheat on him. I said no, that he was my only interest. Jeffrey, incidentally, shared my preferences. There had never been any betrayal. What if he let me out of the cage? Wouldn't it be more fun to be trapped together? Olden turned quickly, as if afraid to give in. Too bad. I discreetly took a stun gun out of my backpack and fired it at his lower back. When he fell, I leaned over and whispered that he wasn't as perverted as I was. I always knew his legs had healed. I pretended to be afraid, followed my friend's plan, left clues, even booked the flight in his name. Everything was calculated. Because even when he thinks he's in control, I'm the one who's really in charge. There was something addictive about the way he looked at me. Furious, wanting to tear me apart, but completely unable to move. His helplessness electrified me. The blood seemed to vibrate inside me. Olden, strapped to the chair, gritted his teeth, until on impulse, he broke some of the chains. I reached out to touch him, but he pulled away. I tried to kiss him, and he turned his face away. I ended up touching my lips to his cheek. He clicked his tongue in contempt. He said he had underestimated me. He thought I was just a pretty girl, full of whims and scandals. I laughed to myself, picked up my cell phone, and used the camera. As a mirror, I looked beautiful, of course. I said sweetly that I would take that as a compliment. The next second, my leg hit his chest. He didn't have time to react, just let out a slight moan. Before he could explode, I climbed onto his lap, straddling him firmly. I held his face and forced him to look at me. I asked him if he loved me. I said I would let him go if he said yes. He replied without hesitation that he hated me. I sighed, feigning disappointment. 2 years, and I hadn't been able to tame this wild wolf. What a waste. I said I was bored and it was time to find a new toy. I saw the fear rise in his eyes, and I kissed him with a smile. I told him I would leave him with his first love. I left. For Switzerland, the weather was pleasant, the sky clear, and the mountains inspired my painting. It had been a year since I left Olden, and everything seemed like a distant dream. As Jeffrey said, my obsession with him had led me to cross all boundaries I wanted to dominate. And it was true. I grew up watching my father being humiliated, bowing down at dinner parties and trying to keep up appearances. My mother died early, and I became his shadow, present at every appointment. I saw how much he suffered and wished that one day I could control the world around me. He gave me everything he thought I needed, but he never had time to teach me what love was. For me, love has always been about complete possession, sticking close without leaving any space, suffocating until the other person couldn't breathe. I needed people to respond to me with desire, to fake affection if necessary, to call me baby just to fill that hole inside me. My therapist tried to convince me to exercise, to seek healthier relationships. He said I should learn how normal people fall in love, so I agreed to go out with a nice blonde guy who seemed genuinely interested. He tried hard to make me laugh as we walked under the soft moonlight. I wondered if that was what they called a normal relationship, getting to know someone, talking, opening up little by little, and only then giving yourself over. With Olden, everything was reversed, from complete strangers to bed, and only then did feelings come, if they came at all. As I thought about this, a traffic light turned red. The car stopped a few inches. From the blonde guy, the sound of tires sliding on the asphalt made me freeze. When I looked up, I met Olden's gaze. He rolled down the window, lit a cigarette, and spoke coldly. He told the blonde guy to leave. I asked him to let me go, but he pretended not to hear me. He threw me over his shoulder, as if I were his property, and took me to my house. He left me at the door and pinned me against the wall. The rage in his body was almost palpable. He asked me who the man was. I told him the truth. It was just a date, after all, after so much. Time apart, I had the right to move on. But Olden seemed about to explode. He punched the wall hard. I brought my lips close to his and said that if he wasn't interesting anymore, I would find someone else. I thought that would push him away. He hated me, right? But no. Instead, he grabbed me tightly and kissed me as if he wanted to devour me. I was surprised, but when I was about to give in, I bit him hard. I tasted blood. He licked his lips and smiled contemptuously, saying that I had a special talent. For annoying him, I jumped off the counter, turned on the light, and stared at him. I told him I don't play games with the same dog twice. I told him to leave. For a second, he seemed to hesitate. I saw something in his eyes that I couldn't quite figure out. He asked what I would do if he decided to stay. I responded with a slap. The air grew heavy. All you could hear was our breathing. After a moment, he turned his face away and offered me the other cheek. He said he knew that was my game. That confused me. If he really hated me, he would have left already. I opened the door and pushed him out. I fled to Lucerne. It was only for one night, but I needed distance. That's where I found Gian Lark, Olden's first love. According to his parents, she had been my schoolmate and helped me a lot back then. We had lost touch. She was also surprised to see me. When I told her I had married Olden and then divorced him, she made a bitter comment, saying he was too strict. We started reminiscing about the past. She told me that our parents had almost forced us to marry. She pretended to be mute for months to escape the arrangement. I almost choked with laughter. It seems that Olden's heart was never closed to Lark. It just never opened. She commented that I got the worst part. I married him when he was weak and divorced him after he recovered. I pretended to be sorry and said that, well, certain physical limitations affect performance. Gian sighed. His fingers tapped away at his phone. After dinner, I walked back to the hotel. As I swiped my card at the door, I felt a chill. Olden's voice came from behind me, tense and low. He said he'd heard about the rumors I'd spread about his supposed incompetence. It's amazing how fast the rich spread gossip. Gian didn't waste any time. One meal, and he already knew everything. Olden walked through the open door, crossed his arms, and stared at me with a cold smile. He said that even with a bad leg, I never left him unsatisfied. And deep down, he was right. When I remembered those days, the image of yellow paint dancing in my mind made me blush slightly. But the last thing I wanted was to get involved with him again. I asked him why he had come back, why he was looking for me again. If I really mattered that much, could it be? Could he have fallen in love with me? Yes. No. We answered at the same time. I was breathless. He approached me, fixing his eyes on mine, without looking away. He repeated firmly. He said yes, that he loved me. The sarcastic words I had prepared died in my throat. When someone is nervous, they try to look busy, so I started playing with my fingers, touching the doorknob, looking for any excuse to escape that tension. I told him he was funny. A year had passed, and now he was coming up with a declaration of love. I thought it was just another one of his traps, another provocation. I told him I wouldn't fall for that game again. He tried to argue, but I wouldn't let him. I fired my accusations with a sharp tongue. Did he need me to remind him what he himself had said? Krista, one day I'm going to divorce you. This is all just a physical reaction. Do you think I really like you? One day I'm going to kill you. You said you hated me. So if you hate me so much, why do you keep coming back to me? Our relationship had always been a minefield. Now he was saying he loved me. What a joke. Only if it were masochism. But then I looked at that South African ring on my finger, the flowers he sent me every day, the words he left about winning me back, and my mind started to spin. That day, after reminiscing about everything we had been through, he was silent for several minutes before suggesting that we get to know each other again, as if we were strangers. But how could we do that? When right at the beginning of our relationship I was already writing in my diary about forcing him to undress and throwing him on the bed? A relationship that starts like that can't have a happy ending. Even so, in the last 2 months, he seemed like a different person. He sent me gifts every day, found new birthdays to celebrate, even the most absurd ones. When I blocked him, he started writing letters, each day in a different style. He even moved into the house across the street and devoted himself to learning recipes to impress me. He kindly invited me to go for walks, shopping, and to the movies. All of this left me bewildered. Even I, who had always been cynical, didn't know how to act. The therapist told me not to pressure myself, that this was how feelings developed. Someone felt something and then acted on it. But Olden's unexpected advance took me by surprise, and I kept thinking about it so much that I even got sick. I had never felt so vulnerable. Olden became overconfident. He started touching me, holding my hand, stroking my face. He said, with an air of superiority, that I should look at myself in the mirror. Then he went to the kitchen, made some porridge, and came to feed me. I turned my face away. I said I didn't want it. I've always hated things without flavor. Everything in me has always sought extremes. Love or hate, sweet or bitter. He ignored my resistance, blew on the porridge, and helped me sit up. He acted with an almost artificial sweetness. Maybe that's why my bad mood came to the surface. I spat out the porridge and asked him coldly if he was a masochist. What sense did it make for someone like him to be so attached to me? His hand, which held the bowl, trembled. His knuckles turned white, but he remained calm. He asked me to eat. I thought he would throw everything on the floor and leave. That's what anyone would expect. But his eyes turned red, faced with my accusation. He turned his face away, and a tear rolled down his cheek. His voice trembled. You always ask if I love you, Krista. But you? Have you ever loved me? Even a little? Or am I just a toy you use to let off steam? I opened my mouth, but said nothing. My silence was enough for him to laugh at himself. He said that I was the one who approached him first, that he saw me knock him down step by step, and then leave him on the ground. How could someone be like that? Olden lowered his head. His eyelashes trembled as if they were about to break. He closed his eyes slowly. His lips formed a bitter smile. He admitted that he was pathetic, that despite everything, he still loved me. At first, he wanted to kill me, but his body reacted differently. He fell in love with my torment. When I hit him, his heart beat so hard that it trembled. He said it made him feel alive, and even though he felt ashamed, he didn't want to lose my touch. He said that no matter how much I thought I was more twisted than him, deep down he was also a deviant. He kept repeating to himself that he didn't love me, that it was just a physical reaction, just stress, just trauma. That's why he said he hated me. That's why he treated me coldly. And he asked me how I could be so indifferent. He said he went to Jeffrey after I ran away, and Jeffrey commented that people like us, who pretend to be tough, become needy puppies when we receive affection. So Krista, can't you love me just a little bit? By the end of the sentence, his voice was almost gone. His eyes were watering. I felt a twinge in my chest, as if something bitter was slowly rising in my throat. I asked him if he had gone mad. I said that I was the one in treatment. How could he now seem sicker than me? As soon as I said it, he cried. He hid his face in my hands, so humble, so small. He said I was going to abandon him again, that stubborn people needed a love that would never leave them. And if anyone there was sick, it was him. Stuck in bed, too weak to move, I threatened to slap him. He laughed, took the medicine, pulled me by the chin and poured the liquid into my mouth. Only after I swallowed did he rest his face on my hand. He said that when I got better, he would let me hit him. It couldn't be real. I thought there were still normal people in the world. That same day, Olden knelt down, begging me not to leave him. He immediately arranged for a private jet to take me back. He said our little game had been going on for months, and it was time to end it. That if he kept me locked up, I wouldn't run away. Even sour fruit is still fruit. I already knew. He was acting the whole time. He just wanted to lock me up as revenge. The next day, I was back at the mansion. With my hands and legs tied, all I could do was beg. I said I was still sick. He replied, "Then call me husband." I said, I wouldn't do that. He didn't rush me. He said we would take it slow. And then came the scene where he gave me the medicine. I felt the warmth of his face against my palm. I pinched him hard and warned him that as soon as I recovered, he would be finished. He just replied that he couldn't wait. A week later, I was fine. Olden took me straight to the basement. He said it was time to settle that unfinished business from a year ago. Now I could enjoy it however I wanted. Everything was as before. Same room, same handcuffs. But this time, he got into the cage. He handcuffed himself skillfully. Sitting cross-legged, he looked at me charmingly. He said, "Welcome back, my wife. I already told you that the treatment needs to be personalized." Jeffrey, stroking his ill-mannered cat, muttered that we were digging our own grave, that we were a mutual disgrace. I massaged my temples, confused. I needed therapy. But therapy for what? Love cannot be defined. My sick desire to have him all to myself, his desire to be dominated, suffocated, to depend on my every breath. It was just our way of loving. We loved each other, we fought, we possessed each other, we fell, and we rebuilt ourselves. We were made for each other. I shot Jeffrey a dirty look. I asked him if he was secretly studying psychology. He chuckled and said no, that deep down, every dysfunctional person finds someone in this world who accepts them. It's part of the natural balance. According to him, healthy relationships are important, but dysfunctional ones are delicious. So, I should just stop questioning myself and allow myself to enjoy it. When the doorbell rang, I knew who it was. Olden had come to pick me up. On his way out, Jeffrey handed him a bag and said, winking at me, "Here's a gift you'll love. Honey, you said you had 365 ways to seduce me in bed. I can't wait to try each one." That was the first thing I heard as soon as we set foot in the house. Olden pinned me against the door with his hot body and breath that made the air around me feel feverish. I knew Jeffrey was going to betray me. He handed my diary to Olden without batting an eyelid. I tried to grab it back, but he threw it over his shoulder like a trophy and tossed me onto the sofa as if I were his. Because I was, again, that unmistakable scent enveloped me. In a hoarse voice, he whispered in my ear that we hadn't even tried a fraction of what was written in my diary. Why not try some new techniques that same night? And so, with a smile, I gave myself to him. In the heat of the moment, he bit my shoulder. I gasped, hit him, called him a dog. For a second, he was surprised. The lust in his eyes turned into something more disturbing. A moist, vulnerable gleam. He offered me his other cheek. He said he wasn't satisfied with that side yet. He took my hand and kissed it gently. His eyes sparkled. "I'm your little dog. A little dog is always loyal to its owner. Do you want me?" I replied with a kiss. After all, it was this wild animal that I had tamed myself. I might as well enjoy it. And then came the story behind it all. Olden was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He never had to ask for anything, never had to fight for attention. One glance was enough, and everyone rushed to guess his desires. It bored him. Life seemed like a slow and predictable theater. Some said he carried a certain air of death. They suggested he date someone, but the thought alone tired him. When he graduated, his family tried to use him as a pawn in yet another negotiation. They pushed him toward Jean Lark, a nice, polite, and discreet girl. But he knew at first glance. There was no connection. They tried for months, exchanging only a few words, to the point where he thought she was mute It ended, and he swore never to try again. He thought all women were like that, boring, bland. He preferred extreme sports, pure adrenaline, because that was when he felt life pulsing through him, until an accident left him bedridden. And that's when Krista Holt burst into his life with violence and color. That woman didn't take no for an answer. She demanded kisses. She demanded affection. She demanded love. If he refused, she bit him. If he hesitated, she challenged him. Even though he was paralyzed, it was as if she was determined to break down all his barriers. He said he hated her, that she was unbearable. But when his legs started moving again, all he wanted was to hold her and make her feel the same way he did. One day he pretended his legs were coming back. He saw the fear on her face. He followed her to the hospital. When she found out the truth, she ran, straight to another man. She had even bought a flight in his name, an unbearable beauty. When he heard her say she wanted to raise her son with another man, he exploded. He sent for her to bring her back. She seemed submissive, so he thought he had won. But it was all part of her plan. When she hit him, he realized he was being manipulated. Again. She looked at him coldly and said she was tired, that it was time to play with someone else. Something inside him broke. He let her go. After all, he didn't love her, but after she left, everything seemed out of place. At breakfast, he instinctively passed the sugar to her side. In bed, he stretched out his arm, waiting for her warmth. In the studio, he looked at the door, waiting to hear the sound of footsteps and potato chips, but the door remained closed. In her studio, blank sheets of paper, not even a picture of him. She never loved him. He laughed bitterly. He was just a toy. But why did he still think about her? Withdrawal, perhaps. A year later, he was still addicted. He went to see Jeffrey. He said we were perfect together. He said Olden was too inhibited, and I was too dramatic. But that made us complete. That love and hate are Siamese twins. That only those who truly love are capable of hating so intensely. He told Olden to come get me. Olden got ready. He faced his pride. But when he saw another man by my side, he lost control. He sped up his car and almost ran us over. He stopped. He took a breath. He saw me, and everything he had prepared evaporated. He just wanted to hold me, kiss me, have me again. Even if I hurt him, he would accept it. He realized then that he loved me. He called Jeffrey. He found out that I was sick, that I needed a healthy relationship. So he researched how to win me over. He tried to be kind. He tried to heal me, and I ignored him. He remembered what he had heard. Don't play with the same dog twice. His throat tightened. He was broken. He wanted to know if I loved him, not just to stop me from leaving, but because the silence hurt. So he decided to kidnap me. He didn't know why he was so obsessed with me. I was manipulative, cruel, a liar, and yet he reveled in it. A doctor said it was a psychological disorder. He didn't want to get treatment because I was the antidote. The thrill of being controlled by me was addictive. I was intense, direct, confident, but also sweet, shy, and unpredictable. Every version of me attracted him more, and that's why, even though he knew I was cheating on him, he gave me everything, even a new job for my bankrupt father, because that's what I was worth to him. He only understood everything when he lost me. Jeffrey was right. Only idiots disguise love with sarcasm. Then he finally said to me, I love you, that he wanted to possess me and give me complete control. He wanted to fall with me, lose himself with me. He gave me his weakness. He let me play with him any way I wanted. He said, welcome back. and I accepted. When my foot ran across his chest, down his muscles to his abs, and the whip cracked in the air, he understood. I loved him too. And you who read our story need to know. It's not always the one who seems passive who is being dominated. Sometimes it's the one who's in charge. And of course, I won't let her get away, because I'm Krista's puppy, and I will always be loyal to her